The most famous person in the crypto world, Brock Pierce. Let's give him a round of applause.
I think maybe here.
All right.
So, Brock, what are we going to talk about?
NFTs?
Yeah, but NFTs and politics.
Oh yeah, politics.
You guys remember that he ran for president? Yoo-hoo. And you're now running for the Senate.
I don't think that's official.
Oh, did I tell him something I wasn't supposed to?
But yeah, of course, if I ran for president of the United States last year, you would never subject yourself to the scrutiny and the risks, because it can cost you your life, your liberty, and all your capital. It's a high-stakes game to step into the ultimate ring of fire, and I did it on 4th of July last year, which means there was zero chance I could win. It was just an exploratory mission to understand the mechanics of the system, which clearly I did with the intention of doing something more.
And you're just a bit wild and crazy anyway.
Yes, and
Proudly.
Some of us have to
So some of us have
ride the wave of the future.
Absolutely, and we love you for that. So let's talk about NFTs and politics. And we had a long chat about this a few weeks ago. There are many ways that NFTs can help the political system. The one that interests me most is, once we vote for politicians, how do we keep them on track? How do we know that all the promises they made are actually going to be rolled out once they're in government? And we were talking about that. We were talking about fundraising. But let's talk about keeping politicians on track. How do NFTs do that?
Well, let's just talk about what blockchain is doing, what Bitcoin is doing, what all of this is doing. At its core, when you really boil it down, what is it all facilitating? It's bringing accountability back to a world that is clearly lacking it. This is restoring accountability, and that's not just in terms of the financial system and the Burr machine.
It's capturing it. It's capturing a promise in an algorithm that is absolutely ubiquitous and decentralized.
Yeah, and so from an NFT perspective, just to get into call it co-creation mode, you're creating a new tool for engagement, right? How are you connecting with your base? And you're creating a tool by which you can create long-term engagement. Your voters are collecting you not just for this election, but future elections. And if they don't like the way you're behaving, they're dumping their collection. They're flooring the price of whatever it is that you have. And it's also another tool for messaging. I mean, right now, social networks, right, are the system has been captured by big tech that sits in the middle, and it's kind of controlling the relationship.
Yeah, and you don't really know.
This is a direct relationship with INFTs. You can even use it as a tool for delivering a message. Your NFT can speak it and say, here's what it is that we're up to. And then there's the governance component, obviously, when we think about it.
But just to slow you down for a sec. So we think that social networks may have some bias in algorithms. I think we've seen that.
Oh.
No. But if I was owning your NFT, you were saying you could have a direct relationship with me that was not filtered by some algorithm. Is that the point?
Well, I mean, I think that's the idea. What we're doing is we're disintermediating, whether it...
That layer.
The whole layer, whether it be the editors-in-chief and your major media companies. We're trying to give the people a direct voice to the people.
Right, so just to wind back, if we gave an NFT to every one of the NFT.NYC community members who are here today, we gave them the Brock NFT. One, it'll be a collectible, so it's probably going to be worth a lot. And two, it would be a way for you to have direct engagement outside of a network.
Well, and that's what we need. I mean, if you question the current political system, which the majority of Americans are, how is it that we got here? And the answer is us. We're the reason, because we're not engaged. We're voting for what we don't want versus what we do want. We're arguing about who's right versus what's right. And ultimately, we have to be engaged. The future is going to happen to us or with us, and the future we get is the one we choose. So let's get engaged and be participants in the system. What is life all about? It's about acting according to our conscience. Stop compromising it. And put the people there and hold them accountable.
Right, so...
Hold them accountable.
So back to, we're going to give everyone a Brock collectible. You're going to be in government. Hopefully you'll be on the banking subcommittee. And what are you going to do for us?
Well, hopefully be a voice of reason, some common sense. And also one of unity. right? It's the North Star is there in the middle, right? I don't call myself I'm not a socialist or a capitalist. I'm a futurist. I care about our collective future. And the only way we get a bright, better future is with a path of unity. You know, I remember the days when you could sit down at a table and have a conversation with people that you disagreed with some dignity and respect. And at the end of that conversation, agreeing to disagree, but at least understanding the perspective of the other side. Of course, socialism and all these sorts of concepts at their core are about compassion, right? We should have compassion. You know, conservatism kind of at its core is about personal responsibility and economic. So it's get your house in order and then figure out how to help others. And so the truth is there somewhere in the middle, and we need a voice of reason, some common sense, and someone that actually knows what's going on. Like, I wouldn't want to be a politician debating me about the future. Actually, I'm not even sure I'd want to debate about the present, because they're generally in the ivory tower. They're not in touch with the present reality and where the world is going. This is the problem for regulators and legislators. Technology, these things are changing faster than they can keep up, which is why we need people with vision and actual experience helping to frame the narrative.
I would just like to see you there as a disruptor. I mean, I would just like to see you amongst all those guys and girls and turning it upside down a little bit. But specifically, what bill would, what would the bill say that you would be trying to push through?
Well, I mean, let's talk about the two things just this week to be, call it in the present reality. We had all the ETF stuff has finally come through, which is good that it finally happened, but so disappointing. These ETFs could have been live when Bitcoin was, in a 3-digit price, and the American people would have had access and benefited greatly from the trillions of dollars of wealth creation. They were prevented from being able to easily participate. They were denied easy access through their brokerage accounts and to benefit. I'm glad the SEC finally got that done. But what we're talking about now is stablecoin regulations, right? I'm one of the founders of Tether. It's doing $100 to $300 billion a year. And I mean, from a U.S. perspective, as someone that, is attempting to represent U.S. interests, as someone that is also a citizen of the world, we're all going to win together or lose together. We're all in this together, and let that not be forgotten. But they're talking about what you do there. The fact that you have a digital dollar that is the primary sort of currency pair is really good to U.S. interest. Do we want to shut that down and make the Chinese digital yuan the primary pair for all of this industry in the world? That's a stupid idea. And so these are some of the sorts of conversations. Look at DeFi right now. You put money in a savings account, you get sub 1%. If you're in Europe, you're getting negative. And now because we're disintermediating a lot of the middlemen, the financial engineers that know how to extract value, and we're allowing the beneficiaries to be the lender. These things are really, really important. And, and again, I don't blame don't hate the player, hate the game, right? They're not the problem. It's a systemic problem. And it's natural. It's human nature to fear that which we don't understand, and we conquer fear with knowledge. And I spend a lot of time with elected officials, with civil servants, and what I have seen is they're genuinely interested in the future. They know the future's coming. They know there's this future economy, and the reality is most of them just don't really know anything. And so what we have to do is actually educate those people that are in government or governance so they can make sensible decisions that benefit our collective future.
So you will help us explain to government why what we're doing is so important. You would be an amazing advocate. I'm going to ask the community shortly to share with you some of their wishes if you were in government, what they would like you to be saying on behalf of the community.
And that's one of the things that can easily be built into an NFT
like this. We're going to in 10 minutes.
It's a tool to deliver information, so it's not just hold me accountable to the things I say, but have a medium, a vehicle by which you can communicate your wishes.
Awesome. So in about 10 minutes, we're going to ask Brock we're going to share with you some of our wishes if you're in government, which would be fantastic. The other opportunity that we discussed before for NFTs in politics was in the whole process of fundraising. Do you want to talk a little bit about that how you see NFTs playing a role there?
Yeah, I mean, it's you think about merch, right, and merchandising. There's definitely a very interesting opportunity with NFTs. If you look at what Gary Vee, his book is now the second best-selling book ever. Because if you buy 12 copies, you get his NFT. Obama's second book is #1. He might dethrone that shortly. So we know that the demand is there, and from a contribution perspective, it's kind of nice because with books, they have a reasonable entry point, and with campaign contributions, there's caps. So you know they can't be that expensive. And so definitely an interesting idea that you are working with the artists of today that care about disrupting our political system, making sure that we have a voice of reason that's present, and this is a participatory way of where it all comes together. I mean, I think it's an interesting idea, and I think we've got more than sufficient evidence that if done correctly, it has to be done correctly. I mean, I've been doing this stuff for so long, and I meet so many boomers that are always pitching me their new project, and it's like, you don't actually understand what we're up to here. So done correctly, I think it can work very well.
So what's interesting about it is if you fund a political campaign via those sorts of micro donations and NFTs, you end up in a position where you're not beholden to any one lobby group who's funded you. That's the point, isn't it? And then you really can execute your promises because you're not beholden to the person who sort of gave you the most money.
Yeah, that's part of the sad reality is, again, most of our elected officials have good intentions. They want to do the right thing or they wouldn't have gotten involved. And it's like that movie Training Day, in a lot of ways. And it's also the deals they have to make along the way. A lot of what politics is the trading of, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, and you end up with a ledger of obligations and commitments to those people that gave you money that you're not actually doing what you believe to be right. You're compromised. We've got regulatory and system capture. This is, crony capitalism in a lot of ways. And again, it's don't hate the player, hate the game. It's part of the system. So I ran for president as an independent. And what happens is you want to get into politics. You're like, okay, I want to go make a difference. I care about our future. I want to know there's a world for the generations that follow that are a good. Then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I need money. Oh, wait, I need infrastructure. Oh, wait, I need ballot access. And you're going through all this stuff that it's going to take to do it. And for almost anyone that gets into politics, the idea of building that on your own is an impossible task. Obviously, we can do that. But so then what you do is you meet with the D's or the R's, and they're like, great, we'll give you all those things you need, but by the way, now your platform is ours, and you're only allowed to have a few opinions, and they can't be anything really important. The rest of the time, you have to toe the party line. And so, yes, having someone that is truly independent, not owned by anyone, there's no special interest telling you what to say or do, and you're there just to act according to your conscience and represent the people that are supporting you.
Do you think at sort of the highest level, there's this conflict in that most of your life you have believed in decentralization, and yet you're running to be a member of a very central authority?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, and none of us in this room, well, I would think, unless you're just new to this, we believe in distributing authority. Centralizing power, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Unless you're in government,
spread it out.
Unless you're in government.
Yes. Well, that's the whole thing is that's how everybody feels until they're in the hot seat, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, well, this is kind of nice, which is, again, why absolute power corrupts absolutely. I mean, Google, do no evil was the intention until all of a sudden, you're more powerful than a big government. How
do we know that our Brock is not going to end up being corrupted?
Well, we should end up with systems, and again, we're getting there. This is for those of you that are working in the field of DAOs. And if you haven't taken a read, I would suggest reading a book called More Equal Animals by Dan Larimer, and what the future of governance and elections look like. It's really a system of meritocracy that uses randomization. We're checking out. It's called Eden. The Eden operating system is the test, like the Garden of Eden. Really cool stuff. But if you're in DAOs, how do we create a system where we can truly hold people accountable, where you have all of that transparency of the things that you're saying, and are you doing it, and what does that governance look like? Clearly, in our existing government, that's going to be a little harder because you don't have the ability to remove someone from office immediately if they're not, well, I mean, you can through protests and such. But how do we get to that point? And it's a process. The world doesn't just go from A to Z. You know, it's a process, and perfection is the enemy of progress. It's a process of step by step, left, right, we make it forward till we eventually get to a point that we end up in the world that we co-create and we all want to live in.
And I guess what you're bringing to the central authority is a transparency and perhaps some movement towards decentralization. And that's what's exciting for me, is that you completely understand that transparent blockchain world, that decentralized world, and we need more of that in federal government.
Yeah, and by doing that, because we only have the power to change ourselves. But by being our best selves, by continually raising the bar, you know, we have the ability to inspire others and to lead by example, which then, you know, can create a movement of others having to do the same thing. You know, if this is all done correctly, this creates a movement of real change. And I have zero desires to hold political office. In my world of what I want in life, it is, you know, on the bottom of the list. So this isn't a matter of desire or want. It's like if you see a child in the street and a bus coming, what do? This is a moral obligation. I know too much to do nothing. I have too much access not to act. You know, and hopefully these types of actions inspire others. So we have a government of, for, and by the people. People that have actually accomplished and done the things in their life and with no desire to even win or be reelected. You know, that's the other problem is once you're in, you're like, well, I just got to play it safe versus doing what you know to be right and forget what the results are for you after the fact. I mean, that's what it is. To truly be a public servant is to serve not yourself but the people and to do what needs to be done even if it is at the expense of your own future. And we don't see that kind of leadership. So
we're going to open it up to our community to share with you what their wishes would be if you're in government. But I'm going to ask you to commit to one thing before we do that. We have created a collectible NFT for you as a speaker. I think it's up there, and we've also shown it in Times Square. I'd like to, in front of everyone, ask your permission to make at least 1,000 of them so that we can give it to our community and have them remember this moment as a time where you said, as a potential politician, that we can communicate with you through your NFT.
You've got my word, and my word is my bond. In the beginning, there was the word. You know.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Who would like to ask the first question, or share a wish?
So Brock, in 2020. Some people don't know that you were voted for on the blockchain, first time in general election history in a presidential election. Are you going to go into office? Are you going to help the rest of your state and the country get into blockchain voting?
Yeah, obviously, for those that don't know, and this is an amazing thing, Utah County in Utah implemented blockchain-based voting in last year's election. And the first vote in a general election using a blockchain was, what's funny is this system opened up a little bit before the election begun in terms of people to be able to come and submit their votes. And so for a little while, I had more votes than every other candidate combined, that being all of one. But it was a historic sort of precedent, and obviously I'm a believer, you know, that the 20th century has created a lot of challenges for us. The good news is we have 21st century solutions. Innovation is the answer. Innovation is how we're going to get through all of the things that you may be concerned about. And again, technology is a tool. It's neither good or bad. How we use it determines the impact it has, which is why it's so important that we are actually being mindful and thoughtful about the things that we're doing. What is our intention? What are we hoping to accomplish? What are we putting our energy behind? Because we have the ability to build a better world that works for everyone. We have that. And it's this community that is facilitating a lot of that change in the world. We're talking about one piece of it, but this is across the board. And clearly conversations around the fact that you can bank from your phone, you can send value from your phone. The idea that our elections are, the way they are is a little shocking. We know that technology can upgrade this, and a system like blockchain clearly seems pretty well suited for it. It's not the only answer. There are a number of ways that we can do this, but this probably is the best one, and clearly I'm an advocate for it. Now, these are decisions that are made at the state level, not the federal level, which is why some of us are going around and at a state level talking to those that run the elections to implement these things. And there is a lot of interest. I'm not sure we're going to see it broadly rolled out by midterms or even 2024. But I would suspect by 2026, 2028, we're going to get there. And when I talk to the Democrats and the Republicans, I always tell the Democrats that making voting easier, that you can do it from your phone and it's accessible, is a great thing. And they all love it. I tell the Republicans that this will ensure, the security of it, and they all love it. You just have to figure out what both sides need to hear to realize that they both benefit from it. Because again, it feels like we're in the divided states of America. There's definitely how do we find this middle road that works for both sides? And this is, I think, an easy one. And that's the argument I make. And it tends to resonate. There's no pushback yet. Now it's just a matter of getting it implemented and rolled out.
Awesome. Any more questions? Yes.
So which order do we want to go? So the question was, who needs a government and, a blockchain? I do believe that that's where we eventually go. The process is, I'm going behind enemy lines, not that they're the enemy, to be in there. If you really want to affect change in the world, the best way to do it is from the inside. It's the hardest way to do it, but it is the effective way, and we, I think, have sufficient data to know this to be true. And where are we going? Governments I eventually see basically as a technology platform. And that's where we're eventually going, and we're just going to be building on top of it. Now, the process of how we get there, and how do we get there without a chaotic revolution, and hopefully a peaceful evolution, is the part I care about. I think what's going to happen is going to happen with or without me. I'm just trying to make this a smoother transition, and that's why I'm making this very big personal sacrifice. But yes, I think that's where we're ultimately going. We're going to upgrade governance. The founding fathers did an incredible thing with the tools that they had at the time. And we have new tools now. We have an opportunity to reimagine. And rather than it just being founding fathers and a small group of people making these decisions, because this is all open source, everyone has the ability to get involved. We all have ability to shape the future. It's open to everyone, which is why, stand up and say, yes, please, I'm in. Let's co-create this. It's open to everyone. Everyone has the ability to contribute to the system that is going to be that system of governance that is that which we choose as the tool to facilitate how we interact and live with each other as communities.
Hey, so we're working with this new legal framework out of Wyoming and registered this DAO LLC. And the focus of this DAO is to democratize access to digital space assets. And we're essentially funding a spaceport in Northeast Wyoming. So I guess we have this interesting moment in time to define this DAO as a space governance with jurisdiction in the state. Let's speak upon this new tooling that's becoming available. It's pretty amazing new frontier.
Well, I'd like to learn more. I'm a general partner in Space Fund, the first space fund, funding all this sort of venture type investments. We've got 19 portfolio companies, and Rick Tumlinson is my partner, who's the one responsible for privatization of space, which is why we have the SpaceX's and such. And I'm based in Puerto Rico, as some of you know, and there's an RFP from the government there in the Roosevelt Roads Air Force Base. We have a 12,000-foot runway designed for landing space shuttles, and it's publicly stated that a spaceport is underway there. And obviously, I'm involved, so I'd love to take a look at everything going on in Wyoming. I've spent a lot of time in Wyoming. Has anyone here ever been to Burning Man? Yeah. Does anyone know the Mayan warrior? And so on the presidential campaign, in the middle of all of the madness, happening in the country last year, the Mayan warrior came for the INU, like you've got the Republican National Convention or the INC, the Democratic National Convention, we did the INC. And at the INC, the Mayan warrior was parked at the Capitol, laser lighting the whole thing. And it's because the mayor of Cheyenne at the time, I gave this kind of Kennedy speech with her, and then we're hanging out and talking. And, she's just like, I'm all about what you want to do. What can I do to help? And, I'm like, I don't know. And eventually I'm like, well, could I kind of throw a Burning Man celebration at the Capitol steps?
In the White House.
And she's like, well,
maybe we could move
you need a
Burning
permit
Man.
from the mayor because the only person that could approve that, and we're in the middle of COVID. And I'm like, well, she's like, done. Which means whatever we do, we're going to make sure it's fun because it's an important lesson. We can do good while doing well and having fun in the process. That's how you know you are living your purpose and you're doing it right. You can have the cherry. Whoever said you can't doesn't. You can have it.
And I love what you said. Federal government should be a technology platform.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going.
That resonates. And it's someone like you who can make that happen.
That's where I think we go. Now, how we get there and what the process is why it's important we're involved.
I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions.
Hey, Barack, what's up? Can you
What's up, brother?
Can you talk to the builders, the companies, the innovators here, the importance of usability and scalability? Do you think our industry is actually ready to do these type of things, to bring it to the masses? We talk often, you and I, about we're 3 to 5 years from 1 billion users, but is the tech even there? That's what I'm concerned about, the usability and the scalability of the tech. Are we there as an industry? Are we ready?
I mean, we're more ready than we were yesterday and the day before that. Again, perfection is the enemy of progress. We just keep iterating. And are these systems becoming more scalable? Yes. Is the usability and the interfaces of how people accessing these things, getting better? Yes. It's all improving. Is it where I'd like it to be? Absolutely not. But the process is happening. And yes, I think I estimate there's now hundreds of millions of people that have cryptocurrency, tens of millions of Americans. And really interesting, think about, so I have done venture capital as one of the many things I've done in my life. The venture capital industry has $250 billion, is effectively the assets they manage, and their role is to invest in innovation and disruptive things. The venture capital community basically missed this whole sector. There's a little bit, they got some of it in, which is amazing, because had they figured this out, had they actually invested, the $2.5 trillion of wealth that's been created would have gone to their limited partners and endowments and financial institutions. Instead, that $2.5 trillion has ended up in our hands. So thank God, that's a very good thing that they missed this, and the financial institutions are just getting really into it now. Because we're single issue voters. We're smart. All we care about is our future. And for those that are going to impede on a future that works for everyone, a future that brings more accountability, a future that brings some transparency, if you're against those things, we're going to see it in these midterm elections. We've got a lot of money, we're very smart, and we're probably single-issue voters, which is we care about the future. And so I'm really excited about where this is going. And obviously, as we drive usability, as we drive scalability, those numbers are only going to get bigger. Your number of $1 billion in 3 to 5 years, I don't think we're talking about 3 to 5 years. I think we're talking about the next 12 months. I think we're at that inflection point now, and yes, I wish the rails were better, and yes, I wish the interfaces were easier to use, but we're there. We've got the ETFs, and some people are going to get there. I've never told anyone, to invest in Bitcoin or any of these things. I've always said, buy $100. Because I'm not giving people financial advice. I say invest in yourself. Invest in your own future, because these are rich people. They're like, oh yeah, I'm ready to get into Bitcoin. What should I do? I'm like, buy $100. They're like, I want to invest. I said, yeah, you start by buying $100. That's how you take your first step. And then from there, as you become informed and knowledgeable, you can make informed decisions for yourself going forward. That is the process. And they're like, that makes some sense. And so with the ETFs and everything else going on, people are going to get in, and that's you want to make it easy. The beginning is how do you make it safe? You know, I send most people in the beginning to Coinbase. Is that where they should be? No. But when people are making their first step, you want things to be as easy and as safe and recoverable as possible, because in the future, you know, you're going to need some training, and that's how you start.
And we have companies like Live Nation who have announced that they're actually introducing NFTs into their whole ticketing.
Awesome. I mean, how many of you used to keep tickets from the concerts you had, like on your pin board, whatever?
And that will help.
You know, I don't know where all mine are. I wish I had them. If they were NFTs, they'd still be in my gallery.
This has just been amazing, and another historical moment for NFT.NYC. Loved your intellect, loved your work for so many years. It's a joy to have you. Thank you very much, Brock.
Thank you. You know, let's build a better, brighter future. Together, let's collaborate. And anyone that has ideas, you generally know how to reach me. I'm out there. I'm everywhere.
Thank you, guys.